question then. Question number 25, which is, what is the book of Ecclesiastes all about? Which actually is a really good question, and that's why I put it at the very end, because I really like the book of Ecclesiastes. We have gone through the book of Ecclesiastes before, and we might just go through the book of Ecclesiastes again, because the book of Ecclesiastes is really interesting to me. And one reason why it's so interesting is because it is very different from maybe all the other books in the Bible, okay? And the reason why I say that is this. It seems like with all the other books in the Bible, who is the center? God, okay? And who are we? We are on the outside circling around God. In other words, God is the center, or should be the center of what our lives are, right? Okay? And so it really isn't all that complicated to say that when you look at the Bible, the Bible is going to be God-centric, okay? Because God is at the center, right? Okay. Now, this is where Ecclesiastes just kind of starts to throw a little bit of curveball, because in the book of Ecclesiastes, God is not the center. Instead, man is at the center. Okay? Now, it's not as if God is orbiting around and God is revolving around mankind, because that's not at all what the book of Ecclesiastes is about. But the book of Ecclesiastes takes a look at the value of human life, not without God, not like an atheistic, agnostic approach, because when you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, you see that God is very much involved. God is very much doing things. God is very much there. So it's not like God is not present in the book of Ecclesiastes, but the focus of the book of Ecclesiastes is not on God. The focus is, what is life like when all of it is focused on ourselves? Okay? And that's what makes the book of Ecclesiastes so unique, and that's what makes the book of Ecclesiastes, in my opinion, so very relevant for our time. Because in our time, society takes this approach. Society, oftentimes people take the approach of, we are the center of our own lives. We are the center of our own universe. We are doing things for ourselves, and maybe we involve God, maybe we don't involve God, but that's not the focus. The focus is on ourselves. Do you agree that people oftentimes operate that way? Thank you. I'll pay you off later for that remark. I think so. Okay.
Do you believe the author is Solomon, right?
Yes. So let's take a look at the book of Ecclesiastes. Chapter 1. Chapter 1, and in verse number 1, it says, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, this word teacher is koleth in Hebrew, or at least my attempt to pronounce it in Hebrew. And the word koleth is where, in the Hebrew scriptures, the book is titled that because it's the words of koleth, okay? And so the teacher, the preacher, somebody who's addressing assembly is what this word is all about. We get the word Ecclesiastes from the Greek translation of the Old Testament, which is the Septuagint, but that's something entirely different. Now, some people will say, oh, well, Solomon wasn't the human author of this book because it says the teacher. But this is where, a couple of questions ago, we talked about how do we know who wrote the books, human authors wrote the books of the Bible. I said sometimes you just have to, use clues and figure it out. This is it, because we notice that the teacher is, number one, son of David. Okay, so he's descended from David. And number 2, he is king in Jerusalem. Okay, now we skip on down into verse number 12. It says, I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I've devoted myself to study and explore by wisdom all that is done under heaven. Later on in verse number 16, he said, I thought to myself, look, I have grown and increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. Okay, so think about this. Who is the first king of Israel? Saul. Who is the second king?
David.
Who was the third king? Solomon. By the way, who is the fourth king? Rehoboam. I'm not going to ask you any more questions after that. But how about if we do this? We'll just do, king, let's see, what did it, 5, K6, K7, K8, okay? So on and so forth. All right. Now, if you look at verse number 16, I thought to myself, I have grown and increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. Okay? So, if we're going to say, okay, if this person is king over Israel in Jerusalem, so if it is king number 8, why can't it be number king in 8? Because he's saying, I've increased over wisdom before anyone who has ruled before me in Jerusalem, right? Problem is, Solomon is the wisest man in the world except for Jesus Christ. And so everyone past Solomon cannot be that person, right? So, it can't be anybody there. It can't be Saul because it's got to be the son of David. Saul was not the son of David. Saul didn't reign in Jerusalem. And at the same time, it can't be David either because how can David be his own, son? So, that's why we've got Solomon. And by the way, Solomon is the most likely candidate when you look at what's going on. You look at what's happening. You look at the situation, circumstances behind it. Solomon is the one that makes sense. Nobody else really makes as much sense over Solomon, okay? All right. Now, back to the real subject matter, which is what is the book of Ecclesiastes all about, okay? All right. So when we look at verses 2 and 3, we see a little bit about this theme of the book. It says, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What does a man gain from all of his labor at which he toils under the sun? We've got these 3 words here that pretty much describe everything. First one is meaningless. The second one is gain. And the third one is a phrase, under the sun. Okay? So, starting out with just simply under the sun, okay? What we're talking about here is a view of life on this earth. We are not talking about a view of life in regards to eternity. Instead, we are just simply talking about what happens if a man views his life from the time he is born to the time he dies, okay? That's it. Now, that's what I'm saying. We're not excluding God like God doesn't exist. And we're not even excluding eternity because Solomon talks about that. But what we're saying is that if we focus on life from the time that we're born to the time that we die, in our life under the sun, on this earth, living for ourselves, what is therefore, and this is the next word, what is the gain? What is the profit? What is the advantage? What do we get? Okay? Now, Solomon and Ecclesiastes is a book of wisdom. And so it is a searching out of really, in this case, like higher wisdom because it's more philosophical in nature, although it does have some proverbs, a lot of really good proverbs in it too. But in this philosophical pursuit, He's just saying, what is the gain of life under the sun? And so you start out with the day of your birth. And did you have anything on the day of your birth? Possessions, something like that. No, you didn't, okay? As you go through life, what do you get? You get possessions, and you get friends, and you get enemies, and you have relationships, and you have memories, and you have accomplishments, and you have achievements, and you have all of that stuff, right? And so if we think, okay, well, we start with zero, but then we build and build and build and build and build, right? Okay. What is the profit of life? What is the gain? What is the advantage? Because no matter how much you do, you're one day going to die. The thing about death is it is the ultimate subtractor. It takes away every single thing that you've done on this earth, and it doesn't matter what it is. I think I saw either a church or a funeral home or something like that, something like, you never see a hearse pulling the U-Haul. it makes a lot of sense. You can't take it with you. And so, no matter how much you do or how little you do, it always comes up with a zero-sum game. You die, you're born, you live, and you die. And when you die, everything that is under the sun is gone. Now, if it is under the sun, then all of a sudden that endures forever, but that is a God-centric life and not a man-centric life. And Ecclesiastes is looking at everything where we are the center, okay? And so if there is no gain, then what is that kind of life about? Well, that comes up to this: meaningless, vanity, worthlessness, emptiness, hollowness, shallowness. And so the Ecclesiastes is a book of wisdom to say, if you put yourself at the center of life, what you are ultimately going to come up with is you are going to come up with something that's meaningless. You're going to come up short. Okay? Now, Solomon, in the next couple of chapters, what he does is he starts to test this. In verse number 16, going back to it says, I thought to myself, look, I have grown and increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also the madness of folly. But I learned that this too was a chasing after a wind, for with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. I thought in my heart, come now, I will test you. And so here we see that Solomon starts to, after laying out his thesis, he starts to give a little bit of his supporting evidence. He starts to lay out experiences. And so he in his life, in his wisdom, he's thinking, okay, well, I'm really searching for what life is all about, and I'm going to put myself to the test to try to find out. And you notice he says, I'm going to test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is foolishness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine, embracing folly. My mind still guided me with wisdom. And so even though he's going down this bad path, he still is thinking about the bigger picture of things. You look at the life of Solomon, you can kind of see this. Because you look at the life of Solomon, you see that here's a man that started out his life very good and very godly. But when he started to get older, his wives led his heart astray. And do you remember what happened? He started to follow after other gods. And he started to lose his relationship, his fellowship that he had with God. Now, when you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, we're going to get to this in a second, you start to see that maybe towards the end of his life, the latter part of his life, after God judged him, this is where he's kind of coming to his own. And so, yes, he's living his life and doing all these things. He's in the back of his mind thinking, what is the purpose? What's the value? What's the meaning? What's this? And, he's mulling it over to kind of come to the conclusion later on. All of these things, pleasure, laughter, folly, it's not getting him anywhere. So, you notice that in verse 4, he talks about great building projects. In verse number 7, he talks about amassing all kinds of different wealth. He does all of these things. In verse number 9, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all of this, my wisdom stayed with me. And so here we come to what is kind of the a little bit of the conclusion. Verse number 9, he says, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my work, for this was the reward of all my labor. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. And so, if for people who say, if I just had a little bit more money, if I just had a little bit more fame, if I just could accomplish this, if I just could do that, then I would be complete and satisfied in life. But again, that big subtractor is right there waiting, and it will always take everything away. Solomon's looking at it, and he's realizing, no matter what I do, no matter how much I do, everything is meaningless. Okay? And so that's one of the conclusions that we have in the book of Ecclesiastes, is that when you have a human-centric life, a man-centered life centered around yourself, there's going to be despair. Okay? And look at society today. What do we have as society? I mean, we have a society that is enormously blessed. We are rich beyond everything that humanity has had all throughout history. And I'm not saying that everybody in this country is rich, okay? But as far as our society goes, we are a richer society than not only all the other societies in the world, all the other countries in the world, but we're a richer society than has ever existed as far as creature comforts and everything. But why is it that we are in such desperate straits? Why is it that we struggle so much with depression and mental illness? And why is it that everybody is so miserable and so unhappy? Well, it's because of this right here. And so the book of Ecclesiastes, some people say it is a very depressing book, because one of the conclusions as you continue to read the book, it's going to come to that. Everything's meaningless. There is no gain in life. It is a chasing after the wind. And when you look at it from that regard, it is. Okay? All right. So that's one conclusion that Solomon reaches down throughout the books at different places. Another conclusion that he reaches, though, is just simply this. One, that if you can find joy in life, you need to enjoy it. In chapter 2, verse number 24, it says, a man can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his work. This too I see is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat or find enjoyment? To the man who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. And so another conclusion that Solomon, and you see this as you read through the book, is just simply after he hits that moment of despair and depression of everything is so bad, everything is so horrible, he then turns and says, you know what? If you can find some blessing from God in life, enjoy it, And I think that that's pretty good advice. I mean, throughout scriptures, we're told to be thankful, and we can always find something to be thankful for. And when you look at people, the ones who are thankful and appreciative of the things that they have are, generally speaking, happier people, right? So, is that the secret to life? Is that what life is all about? No, because he says at the end of that, this too is a meaningless chasing after the wind that's only going to take you so far. Okay? So, conclusion number 1, despair. Conclusion number 2 is find joy, and if you can, enjoy it. Okay? Now let's go to chapter 12 and let's see the end of it. Because as you read through the book of Ecclesiastes, he really kind of sets everything out in the first couple of chapters. And then from there, it really is just kind of rehashing at the same time, giving some good proverbs in there for everything. Okay? But when we get to chapter 12, at the end of it, all of a sudden now we see the main conclusion of the book. Okay? All right. Chapter 12, verse 9. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads, and their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition of them. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Now, here's the conclusion of the matter, verse number 13. All has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. In other words, instead of living a life like this, live a life like that. Okay? That's conclusion number 3. That's the real duty of man. That's the whole, if you want to know the whole meaning of life, that's the meaning of life. Okay. You got questions on that? Chloe, did you have something?
Yeah, one second.
Okay.
I always enjoy whenever science backs up God.
Yes.
And one of my favorite classes I took in college was just called Happiness. This is the psychology of happiness and what makes people happy.
Uh-huh.
And the studies have shown that people, who feel like they have a purpose in life, feel the most happy.
Right.
People who are faithful, who have the spiritual, but who are faithful, are more happy, and people who practice gratitude are more happy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what point 2 in Ecclesiastes says. Find joy, find a purpose, hold on to it, and be thankful for it.
Absolutely.
As a blessing from God. And I just, that's what I believe.
Okay. Okay. Very, very true. All right. Anybody else got anything about Ecclesiastes? What? To me, Ecclesiastes, that's what I'm saying. To me, Ecclesiastes is a fascinating book. Let's say, the book of Ecclesiastes is my favorite book, but then again, there's another book that, Philippians is my favorite. Oh, wait a minute, Colossians, that's my favorite book. Wait a minute,
What about Galatians?
Galatians, that's a favorite book.
John's good.
John is fantastic. So, but
Leviticus.
that's a good one.